The gunshot that tore through the evening air was meant for someone else, but it changed Victoria Oliverson's life forever, sending her running from Kansas City with nothing but the clothes on her back and a heart full of fear. She arrived in Bodie, California in the spring of 1878 with dust in her hair and desperation in her eyes. The mining town sat high in the Sierra Nevada, a place where fortunes were made and lost daily, where gunfights erupted over card games and women were scarce. Victoria had traveled west on the last of her money, seeking the only family she had left, an uncle she barely remembered from childhood, who farmed on the outskirts of this lawless town. Gerald Oliverson was not pleased to see his niece. He stood in the doorway of his weathered farmhouse, his face lined with years of hard living and harder drinking, and looked at her as though she were another mouth he could not afford to feed. Which, Victoria supposed, she was. "Your father was the fortunate one," Gerald said, spitting tobacco juice into the dirt. "Got the family money, the respect, everything. Left me with nothing but this patch of dirt that barely grows weeds." Victoria held her small bundle of possessions closer to her chest. "I can work, Uncle. I do not need charity. I just need a place to stay until I can figure out what to do next." Gerald looked her up and down with calculating eyes. "You can stay in the back room. You will work for your keep. Cooking, cleaning, tending the animals. I have got chickens, 2 cows, and a vegetable garden that needs constant attention." "Thank you," Victoria said, relief flooding through her despite his cold welcome. The back room was barely more than a closet with a narrow bed and a single window that looked out over brown hills. But it was shelter, and after 3 weeks of traveling in fear, sleeping in boarding houses and wondering if the men who killed her father would find her, it felt like safety. Victoria's father had been a banker in Kansas City, a man of some standing and considerable wealth. He had made an enemy of the wrong man, a cattle baron named Marcus Thorne who did not appreciate having his loan called in when he could not pay. Thorne had sent men to their house one evening. Victoria had been upstairs when she heard the gunshot. She had looked down from the landing and seen her father's body on the floor, blood pooling beneath him. The men had been searching for documents, for proof of debts and loans. Victoria had run out the back door and kept running. She could not go to the law because Thorne owned half the law in Kansas City. She could not stay because she knew they would come for her next, to ensure she could not testify to what she had seen. So she ran to the only place she could think of, to an uncle she barely knew in a town so remote that maybe, just maybe, she could disappear. The dresses Victoria owned had been fine once, made of good fabric with careful stitching. But the journey west had been rough. She had traveled by train as far as her money lasted, then by stagecoach, then on foot. Her dresses were torn at the hems, stained with dust and mud, patched in places with whatever fabric she could find or trade for. She looked like what she was, a woman who had lost everything and was barely surviving. Gerald put her to work immediately. She rose before dawn to milk the cows, gathered eggs from chickens that pecked at her hands viciously, hauled water from the well until her arms ached. She cooked meals from the meager supplies Gerald provided, mostly beans and salt pork, and the vegetables she managed to coax from the struggling garden. Gerald himself spent most days in town, drinking away what little money he made selling eggs and milk, coming home drunk and mean-spirited. "You think you are better than this," he said to her one night, words slurring together. "Coming here in your fancy torn dresses with your fancy ways. You are nothing now, girl. Nothing." Victoria said nothing, just cleared away his plate and washed the dishes in silence. She had learned quickly that arguing with Gerald only made things worse. She had been there 3 weeks when she first saw Isaac Fitzgerald. Victoria had walked into town to sell eggs, a basket over her arm, her tattered blue dress doing little to protect her from the morning chill. Bodie was a rough town, full of miners and gamblers and men looking to strike it rich. Women turned to look at her with pity or disdain. Men looked at her in ways that made her keep her eyes down and her pace quick. She was outside the general store, counting out the coins the shopkeeper had given her for the eggs, when a drunk miner stumbled into her. The coins scattered across the dusty street. "Watch where you are going," the miner snarled, even though he had clearly been the one at fault. Victoria dropped to her knees, scrambling to find the coins in the dirt. She needed every cent. Gerald would be furious if she lost any of it. The miner kicked dust at her as he walked away, laughing. She was reaching for a coin near a horse's hoof when she heard a voice, low and steady. "Easy there, girl." Victoria looked up and found herself staring into the kindest eyes she had ever seen. They were blue, the color of the sky on a clear day, set in a sun-bronzed face beneath the brim of a black cowboy hat. The man crouched down beside her, careful not to startle her, and began helping her collect the scattered coins. "That miner had no call to do that," he said. His voice had a slight drawl, southern perhaps, smooth as honey. "You all right, miss?" "I am fine," Victoria said quickly, taking the coins he handed her. "Thank you for your help." He studied her for a moment, and Victoria felt heat rise to her cheeks. She was acutely aware of how she must look, her dress torn and patched, her hair pulled back in a simple braid because she had no pins or ribbons to style it properly. But when the cowboy looked at her, there was no pity in his eyes, no judgment. Instead, he looked at her as though she were something precious. "Allow me to introduce myself properly," he said, rising to his feet and offering her his hand to help her up. "Isaac Fitzgerald. I work at the Double R Ranch about 5 miles south of here." Victoria hesitated, then placed her hand in his. His grip was strong but gentle, and he helped her to her feet with easy strength. "Victoria Oliverson. Miss Oliverson," he said, and the way he said her name with such respect and care made something inside her chest tighten. "It is a true pleasure to make your acquaintance." She withdrew her hand quickly, clutching the coins. "I should go. My uncle will be waiting." "Gerald Oliverson is your uncle?" Isaac asked, and something flickered across his face. Concern, perhaps. "Yes, I am staying with him." Isaac nodded slowly. "I see. Well, Miss Oliverson, I hope we meet again soon." Victoria hurried away, her heart beating strangely fast. She did not look back, but she could feel his gaze on her until she turned the corner. That night, as she lay in her narrow bed, Victoria found herself thinking about Isaac Fitzgerald. About his kind eyes and gentle hands, and the way he had helped her without expecting anything in return. About the way he had called her Miss Oliverson, as though she were a lady worthy of respect, not a desperate woman in a tattered dress. She told herself to forget him. Nothing good could come from entertaining such thoughts. She had nothing to offer anyone, was nothing more than her uncle's unpaid servant, a woman hiding from a dangerous past. But still, as she drifted off to sleep, she thought of blue eyes and a gentle voice, and she smiled despite herself. 3 days later, Isaac came to the farm. Victoria was in the garden, on her hands and knees pulling weeds from between the struggling vegetable plants. Her dress was covered in dirt, her hands raw and blistered. She heard the sound of hoofbeats and looked up to see Isaac riding toward the house on a beautiful bay horse. He dismounted gracefully and removed his hat when he saw her. "Miss Oliverson, I hope I am not intruding." Victoria stood quickly, trying uselessly to brush the dirt from her dress. "Mr. Fitzgerald, what brings you here?" "I wanted to check on you," he said simply. "Make sure you were well." "That is very kind but unnecessary. I am perfectly fine." Isaac looked around the farm at the sagging fence line and the struggling crops, at the house that needed paint and repairs. "Is your uncle home?" "He is in town," Victoria said. Which meant he was at the saloon drinking, but she would not say that to a stranger. "Good," Isaac said. Then, seeing her confused expression, he added quickly, I was hoping to speak with you privately for a moment, if that would be all right." Victoria's heart began to beat faster. "I suppose that would be acceptable." Isaac reached into his saddlebag and pulled out a package wrapped in brown paper. "I brought you something. I hope you will not think me too forward." Victoria took the package hesitantly and unwrapped it. Inside was fabric, beautiful blue calico, enough for a dress. There was also thread, needles, and some ribbon. "Mr. Fitzgerald, I cannot accept this," Victoria said, even as her fingers traced the soft fabric longingly. "Please," Isaac said. "I have sisters back home in Texas. When I saw you the other day, I thought of them. How they would hate to be without the means to make a proper dress. It is just a gift, no strings attached. I expect nothing in return." Victoria looked up at him, at his honest face and kind eyes. "Why are you being so kind to me?" Isaac was quiet for a moment, as though choosing his words carefully. "When I saw you in town, gathering those coins from the dirt, I saw something in you. Grace, dignity, strength. You were treated poorly, but you did not complain or make a scene. You just quietly did what needed to be done. That takes character, Miss Oliverson. And when I look at you, I do not see a woman in a torn dress. I see someone special, someone who deserves to be treated with kindness and respect." Tears pricked at Victoria's eyes. No one had spoken to her like that in so long. Since her father died, she had been treated as though she were worthless, a burden. But Isaac looked at her as though she were valuable, as though she mattered. "Thank you," she whispered. "This is incredibly generous." "It is my pleasure," Isaac said. He put his hat back on and smiled at her, a smile that made her feel warm all over. "I hope to see you in town again soon, Miss Oliverson, perhaps on Sunday. There is a church service if you are interested." "Perhaps," Victoria said, clutching the fabric to her chest. Isaac mounted his horse and tipped his hat to her before riding away. Victoria stood in the garden, watching him go, feeling as though something fundamental had shifted in her world. That evening, after Gerald had stumbled home drunk and fallen into his bed, Victoria lit a candle and began to work on the fabric Isaac had brought her. She had learned to sew as a young girl, and though her skills were rusty, she still remembered the basics. She worked late into the night, cutting and stitching, creating something beautiful from what she had been given. On Sunday, Victoria walked into town wearing her new dress. It fit her perfectly, the blue fabric bringing out the color of her eyes. She had used the ribbon to tie back her hair, and though she knew she was still too thin, too worn-looking, she felt pretty for the first time in months. The church was a simple wooden building at the edge of town. Victoria slipped into a back pew, aware of the curious stares from other townspeople. She was just settling in when Isaac appeared beside her. "May I sit with you?" he asked quietly. Victoria nodded, not trusting her voice. Isaac sat beside her, and she was acutely aware of his presence, the warmth of him, the clean scent of soap and leather. The service was simple, the preacher's words about hope and redemption. Victoria found herself listening intently, hungry for the comfort the words offered. When it was time to sing, Isaac had a fine voice, deep and true, and Victoria found herself harmonizing with him without thinking about it. After the service, Isaac offered her his arm. "May I walk you home, Miss Oliverson?" "That would be nice," Victoria said, placing her hand in the crook of his elbow. They walked slowly, taking the long way around town. Isaac told her about himself, about growing up in Texas on his family's ranch, about coming to California to work and save money, hoping eventually to buy his own land. He spoke of his parents, still alive and well, and his 3 younger sisters who wrote him letters full of gossip and news from home. Victoria found herself talking too, more than she had talked to anyone in months. She told him about her father, about how he had been a good man who loved books and music, who had taught her to read and encouraged her education. She did not tell him how her father died, could not bring herself to speak those words aloud, but she told him enough that Isaac understood she was grieving, that she had lost someone dear. "Your uncle," Isaac said carefully as they neared the farm. "He treats you well." Victoria hesitated. She did not want to lie, but she also did not want to speak poorly of family, even family that treated her as little more than a servant. "He has given me a place to stay." Isaac stopped walking and turned to face her. "That is not what I asked." Victoria looked down at her hands. "He is not cruel if that is what you are worried about. He drinks and he is bitter about his life, but he has never raised a hand to me. I work for my keep, that is all." "You deserve better than that," Isaac said softly. "You deserve so much better." Victoria looked up at him, at the intensity in his blue eyes, and felt her breath catch. "You barely know me, Mr. Fitzgerald. How can you say such things?" "I know enough," Isaac said. "I know that you are kind and hardworking. I know that you have faced hardship with grace. I know that when you smile, which you do not do often enough, it is like the sun coming out. That is enough for me to know you deserve every good thing this world has to offer." Victoria felt tears slip down her cheeks before she could stop them. Isaac reached up gently and wiped them away with his thumb, the gesture so tender it made her heart ache. "I am sorry," she said. "I am not usually so emotional." "You have nothing to apologize for," Isaac said. "Miss Oliverson, I would very much like to court you properly if you would allow it. I know it is fast, and I know we have only just met, but I feel like I have been waiting my whole life to find someone like you." Victoria's heart was pounding so hard she was sure he must be able to hear it. "I would like that," she whispered. "I would like that very much." Isaac smiled, that beautiful warm smile, and Victoria felt something inside her that had been frozen since her father's death begin to thaw. Over the following weeks, Isaac courted Victoria with a dedication and sweetness that left her breathless. He came to the farm every few days, always bringing something small. Fresh fruit from town, a book he thought she might enjoy, wildflowers he had picked on his ride over. He helped her with the heavy work around the farm, repairing the sagging fence, fixing the leak in the chicken coop roof, turning over the soil in the garden so her vegetables would grow better. Gerald watched all this with suspicious eyes, but he did not object. The farm was benefiting from Isaac's help, and Gerald was too lazy and drunk most of the time to care much about what his niece did as long as the work got done. Isaac always treated Victoria with the utmost respect. He called her Miss Oliverson, though she had told him he could call her Victoria. He always asked permission before touching her, even something as simple as offering his arm or helping her over a rough patch of ground. He listened when she spoke, truly listened, as though her words were precious and important. One evening, about 6 weeks after they met, Isaac took Victoria on a picnic. He had arranged the afternoon off from his work at the ranch and had packed a basket full of food. They rode out on his horse, Victoria sitting in front of him, his arms around her as he held the reins. She felt safe there, surrounded by his warmth and strength. He took her to a spot beside a small creek, where wildflowers grew in abundance and the water burbled over smooth stones. He spread out a blanket and unpacked the basket, revealing fried chicken, fresh bread, cheese, and even a small cake. "This is wonderful," Victoria said, looking at the spread in amazement. "When did you have time to prepare all this?" "I may have had some help from the ranch cook," Isaac admitted with a grin. "I told her I was trying to impress a very special lady, and she took pity on me." They ate and talked, and for the first time in months Victoria felt truly happy. The shadow of her past, of her father's death and the danger that might still be pursuing her, felt far away. Here, beside this creek with this good man, she could almost believe in a future, in happiness, in love. After they had eaten, Isaac reached into the basket and pulled out a small box. "I have something for you," he said, suddenly looking nervous. Victoria took the box and opened it. Inside was a beautiful silver locket on a delicate chain. She gasped. "Isaac, this is too much." "It belonged to my grandmother," Isaac said. "My mother sent it to me in her last letter. She said I should give it to the woman I intended to marry." Victoria's hands trembled. "What are you saying?" Isaac took the box from her and removed the locket, then moved behind her to fasten it around her neck. His fingers were gentle on her skin, sending shivers down her spine. Then he came back around to face her, taking her hands in his. "Victoria Oliverson, I know we have not known each other long by traditional standards, but I know my heart and I know my mind. You are the finest woman I have ever met. You are strong and brave and kind. You face each day with courage, even when life has treated you harshly. When I think about my future, I cannot imagine it without you in it." Isaac reached into his pocket and pulled out a ring. It was simple, a gold band with a small diamond, nothing fancy but beautiful nonetheless. "I love you, Victoria. I have loved you since the moment I saw you gathering those coins in the street, holding your head high despite everything. Will you marry me? Will you let me spend the rest of my life treating you the way you deserve to be treated, loving you the way you deserve to be loved?" Victoria could barely breathe. Joy and fear warred inside her. She wanted to say yes with every fiber of her being, but she could not without telling him the truth. "Isaac, there is something you need to know," she said, her voice shaking. "Something about my past, about why I came here." "You do not have to tell me," Isaac said gently. "Your past is your own." "No, I do," Victoria insisted. "Because it might put you in danger, and I could not live with myself if something happened to you because of me." So she told him everything. About her father's death, about Marcus Thorne, about the men who came to their house that night. About running, about the fear that still woke her sometimes in the middle of the night, the fear that they would find her. Isaac listened without interrupting, his face growing serious. When she finished, he was quiet for a long moment. "I am sorry," Victoria said, pulling her hands from his. "I understand if you do not want to marry me now. I should have told you sooner." Isaac took her hands again, holding them firmly. "Victoria, look at me." She raised her eyes to his. "What happened to you was not your fault. You did nothing wrong. And I am not afraid of Marcus Thorne or his men. If they come here, they will have to go through me to get to you. I meant what I said. I love you and I want to marry you. I want to protect you and care for you for the rest of our lives. So I am going to ask you again, Victoria Oliverson, will you marry me?" Victoria felt tears streaming down her face, but this time they were tears of joy. "Yes," she said. "Yes, Isaac, I will marry you." Isaac slipped the ring onto her finger and then he leaned forward and kissed her. It was Victoria's first kiss, gentle and sweet and full of promise. When they pulled apart, both of them were smiling. "I want to marry you soon," Isaac said. "This week if possible. I do not want to wait, and I do not want you spending another day in that farmhouse with your uncle. You will come live with me at the ranch. The owner is a good man, and there is a small cabin on the property that I have been renting. It is not much, but it is clean and safe, and it will be ours." "This week," Victoria repeated, feeling dazed. "Yes, all right, this week." They rode back to the farm in the gathering dusk, and Isaac helped Victoria down from the horse. "I will speak to your uncle tomorrow," he said. Ask his permission formally, though I do not care much what he says. You are over 18 and you can make your own decisions, but I will do this properly. He will say yes, Victoria said. He will be glad to be rid of me. Isaac's face darkened. Do not say that. You are a treasure and he is a fool if he does not see it. The next day, Isaac came to the farm wearing his best clothes. He found Gerald working in the barn, or rather sitting in the barn drinking from a flask. Mr. Oliverson, Isaac said, removing his hat, I would like to ask for your niece's hand in marriage. Gerald looked up, his eyes bleary. You want to marry Victoria? I do, sir, very much. Gerald laughed, a harsh, ugly sound. What do you see in her? She is a plain thing, no dowry, nothing to offer a man. Isaac's jaw tightened, but he kept his voice respectful. I see a woman of character and grace. I see someone I want to spend my life with. Do I have your permission? Gerald waved his hand dismissively. Take her, she is yours, one less mouth to feed. When is the wedding? This Saturday, if she agrees. Fine, fine, just leave me in peace. Isaac turned on his heel and left, disgusted. He found Victoria in the garden and told her what had transpired. I am sorry he is like that, Victoria said quietly. You have nothing to apologize for, Isaac said firmly. You are not responsible for his failures as a human being. Now, let us talk about our wedding. Where would you like to get married? The church, Victoria suggested. Nothing fancy, just simple. I do not have any family to invite, and I do not really know anyone in town. I have some friends from the ranch, Isaac said. Good men who will be happy for us. And we do not need a big crowd, just each other. What matters is that we will be married, that we will be starting our life together. That week passed in a blur of preparation. Victoria made herself a wedding dress from the remaining fabric Isaac had given her, staying up late by candlelight to stitch every seam perfectly. She had almost nothing else to pack, just a few belongings that fit into a small bag. On Saturday morning, Victoria dressed in her new gown and looked at herself in the small, cracked mirror in her room. The dress was simple but beautiful, with a fitted bodice and a full skirt. She had used the last of the ribbon to weave through her hair, which she had styled in a simple updo. She looked like a bride, she thought. She looked happy. Gerald did not come to the wedding. Victoria had not expected him to, and she found she did not care. She walked to the church alone, carrying a small bouquet of wildflowers she had picked that morning. Isaac was waiting for her at the altar, looking handsome in a dark suit. His eyes widened when he saw her walking down the aisle, and the look of pure love and admiration on his face made Victoria's heart soar. The ceremony was simple, conducted by the same preacher who gave the Sunday services. There were a handful of people in attendance, ranch hands Isaac worked with, the ranch cook who had helped with the picnic, a few townspeople who had come out of curiosity. But Victoria barely noticed them. All she could see was Isaac standing before her, saying his vows in a strong, clear voice. I, Isaac Fitzgerald, take you, Victoria Oliverson, to be my lawfully wedded wife. I promise to love you, honor you, protect you, and cherish you for all the days of my life. I promise to treat you like the queen you are, to never let you doubt your worth or your beauty. I promise to be faithful, to be true, to be the man you deserve. Victoria's voice shook as she said her own vows. I, Victoria Oliverson, take you, Isaac Fitzgerald, to be my lawfully wedded husband. I promise to love you, honor you, support you, and cherish you for all the days of my life. I promise to be faithful, to be true, to build a life with you full of love and happiness. The preacher pronounced them man and wife, and Isaac kissed Victoria with such tenderness and joy that she felt tears slip down her cheeks. They left the church hand in hand, officially married, and Isaac helped Victoria onto his horse before mounting behind her. They rode to the ranch together, toward their new life, toward their future. The cabin Isaac had mentioned was small, just 2 rooms, a main living area with a kitchen and a bedroom. But it was clean and cozy, with a real bed and a wood stove and curtains on the windows. To Victoria, who had been sleeping in a closet-sized room at her uncle's farm, it felt like a palace. "Welcome home, Mrs. Fitzgerald," Isaac said, carrying her over the threshold. "Mrs. Fitzgerald." Victoria loved the sound of that. That night, as they lay together in their marriage bed, Isaac held Victoria close and whispered how much he loved her. He was gentle and patient, making sure she felt safe and cherished. Afterward, Victoria lay with her head on his chest, listening to his heartbeat, and felt a peace she had not known in months. "I love you," she whispered. "I love you too," Isaac said, kissing the top of her head. "You are my wife now, Victoria. My partner, my equal, my queen. I will spend every day proving that to you." The first months of their marriage were the happiest of Victoria's life. She kept their small cabin spotless, cooked meals from the supplies Isaac brought home, and reveled in the simple joy of making a home with the man she loved. Isaac worked hard at the ranch, but he always came home to her with a smile, always greeted her with a kiss and words of love. He continued to treat her like royalty, even though they had little money. He brought her small gifts, flowers, a book of poetry, a pretty hair comb he had saved up for. He helped her with household chores without being asked, never acting as though such work was beneath him. He talked to her about his day, asked her opinions, valued her thoughts. "You are so good to me," Victoria said one evening as they sat together on the small porch of their cabin, watching the sunset. "You deserve nothing less," Isaac said simply. But their happiness was interrupted one day when Isaac came home early from work, his face serious. "Victoria, I heard something in town today," he said. "Some men came through, asking questions. They were looking for a woman, described you pretty accurately. Said they were working for a man in Kansas City, said there was a reward for information about you." Victoria felt the blood drain from her face. "Marcus Thorne sent them." "That is what I figured," Isaac said. He took her hands in his. "Listen to me, Victoria. I will not let anything happen to you, but we need to be smart about this. I talked to the ranch owner, Mr. Reynolds. He is a good man, and I told him the truth about your situation. He said we could move into the main house, into the quarters where the house staff stay. It is more secure, harder for anyone to get to you. He also said he would have some of the ranch hands keep watch, make sure no strangers come around." "Isaac, I cannot ask you to put yourself and these other people in danger for me," Victoria said, fear making her voice shake. "You are not asking. I am offering. We are offering. You are part of this community now, Victoria. You are my wife, and everyone here respects that. We take care of our own." They moved to the main ranch house that evening. Mr. Reynolds was a weathered man in his 50s, kind-eyed and soft-spoken. His wife had died years earlier, and he ran the ranch with the help of his foreman and a dozen ranch hands. He showed Victoria and Isaac to a small suite of rooms on the second floor. "You are safe here, Mrs. Fitzgerald," he said. "Anyone tries to get to you, they will have to get through all of us first." The next few days were tense. Isaac insisted Victoria stay close to the house, not venture into town. He taught her how to shoot a rifle just in case, though he assured her it was only a precaution. "I do not like this," Victoria said as they practiced shooting at targets set up behind the barn. "I do not like living in fear, looking over my shoulder." "I know," Isaac said, "but it is temporary. Once these men realize you are not here alone, that you are protected, they will move on. Thorne cannot afford to start a war out here over a witness. He has no power in California." Isaac was right. A week later, the men left town without finding Victoria, But Isaac was not content to simply wait and hope the threat would not return. He wrote letters, using his connections and the help of Mr. Reynolds. He contacted a U.S. Marshal who was known for taking on cases involving corruption. He laid out everything Victoria had witnessed, provided testimony, gave dates and details. 2 months later, they received word that Marcus Thorne had been arrested. The marshal, working with law enforcement in Kansas City who were not on Thorne's payroll, had gathered enough evidence to charge him not only with Victoria's father's murder, but with a host of other crimes. Thorne would spend the rest of his life in prison. When Isaac told Victoria the news, she collapsed into his arms, sobbing with relief. "It is over," she kept saying. "It is really over." "It is over," Isaac confirmed, holding her tight. "You are safe now. You can stop looking over your shoulder. You can just live, just be happy." And Victoria was happy. As the months turned into years, her life with Isaac became even richer and fuller. They moved back to their cabin, which they fixed up and expanded with Isaac's growing income. He was promoted to foreman at the ranch, a position that came with better pay and more respect. Victoria threw herself into making their cabin a true home. She planted a garden that flourished under her care, producing vegetables and flowers. She learned to can and preserve food for the winter. She made friends with the other ranch wives, joined the ladies' auxiliary at church, became part of the community in a way she had never been before. And through it all, Isaac continued to treat her like a queen. He never stopped bringing her flowers, never stopped telling her how beautiful she was, how much he loved her. He never raised his voice to her in anger, never belittled her or made her feel small. He valued her opinions, respected her intelligence, treated her as an equal partner in their marriage. 2 years after their wedding, Victoria discovered she was pregnant. She told Isaac one evening over dinner, watching nervously for his reaction. Isaac's face went through a series of expressions: surprise, joy, wonder, and then pure elation. He stood up so fast his chair fell over, came around the table and swept Victoria into his arms. "We are going to have a baby," he said, his voice full of awe. "Yes," Victoria said, laughing at his enthusiasm. "In about 6 months if the doctor is right." Isaac set her down gently as though she were made of glass. "Are you well? Do you feel all right? Should you be standing? Sit down, let me get you some water." "Isaac, I am fine," Victoria said, amused by his sudden fretting. "Pregnancy is natural, not an illness." But Isaac insisted on taking extra care of her throughout her pregnancy. He did not let her lift anything heavy, made sure she was eating well, rubbed her aching feet in the evenings. He talked to her belly, telling their unborn child stories, singing little songs he made up. Victoria found herself falling even more in love with her husband, if that was possible. Watching him prepare for fatherhood with such joy and dedication made her heart feel like it might burst. Their son was born on a cold January morning in 1881. The birth was long and difficult, but when Victoria finally heard her baby's first cry, all the pain vanished. Isaac was allowed into the room once the doctor had cleaned up the baby, and when he held his son for the first time, tears streamed down his face. "He is perfect," Isaac whispered. "Victoria, he is absolutely perfect." They named him Samuel after Isaac's father. Samuel had Isaac's blue eyes and Victoria's dark hair, and from the moment he was born, he was the light of their lives. Isaac was a wonderful father. He changed diapers without complaint, walked the floor with Samuel when he was fussy, sang him to sleep. He involved himself in every aspect of their son's care, never acting as though it was solely Victoria's responsibility. "You are such a good father," Victoria told him one night as they watched Samuel sleep in his cradle. "I had a good example," Isaac said. My father taught me that being a man means taking care of your family, all aspects of it, that loving your wife and children is not a weakness but a strength. When Samuel was 6 months old, Victoria discovered she was pregnant again. This time, their daughter arrived in the spring of 1882, an easier birth that left Victoria exhausted but happy. They named her Lily, and she looked like a perfect combination of both of them. Their cabin was bursting with life and love now. Samuel, toddling around, fascinated by everything. Lily, sweet and smiley, content to be held and cuddled. Isaac, working hard but always making time for his family. And Victoria, happier than she had ever dreamed possible. On their 5th wedding anniversary, Isaac surprised Victoria with a picnic, just like the one where he had proposed. Mr. Reynolds' wife had agreed to watch the children for the afternoon, and Isaac took Victoria back to the same spot by the creek where everything had changed. "I wanted to remind you," Isaac said as they sat on the blanket, "of the promises I made to you, to love you, honor you, treat you like a queen. Have I kept those promises?" "Every single day," Victoria said, taking his hand. "You have given me a life I never dreamed I could have. You have made me happier than I ever thought possible." "You did the same for me," Isaac said. "When I first saw you in town that day in your tattered dress, trying so hard to hold onto your dignity despite everything, I saw something special. I saw strength and grace and beauty that had nothing to do with money or fine clothes. I saw the woman I wanted to spend my life with." "I was so lost back then," Victoria said. "I felt like I had nothing, like I was nothing, but you looked at me and saw someone valuable. You treated me with such kindness and respect, even when I could give you nothing in return. You changed my life, Isaac. We changed each other's lives," Isaac said. "We built this life together as partners. And I want you to know, Victoria, that I am more in love with you now than I was the day I married you. Watching you as a mother, seeing you build friendships in town, seeing you grow and bloom like a flower, finally getting enough water and sunlight, it has been the greatest privilege of my life." Victoria kissed him, pouring all her love and gratitude into it. "I love you, Isaac Fitzgerald. I will love you until my last breath." They stayed by the creek until sunset, talking and laughing, remembering their journey together. When they returned home, Samuel ran to greet them and Lily babbled happily in her cradle, and their little cabin felt like the richest palace in the world. As the years passed, their family grew. Another son, James, arrived in 1884, then twin girls, Rose and Ruth, in 1886. Their cabin expanded, rooms added on, until it was a proper small house. Isaac's income grew as well. Mr. Reynolds made him a partner in the ranch, recognizing his hard work and dedication. But no matter how busy life got, no matter how much their circumstances improved, Isaac never stopped treating Victoria like the most precious thing in his life. He still brought her flowers, still told her she was beautiful, still helped with housework and childcare without being asked, still valued her opinions and treated her as an equal. And Victoria, in turn, loved him with a fierce devotion that never wavered. She supported his dreams, cared for their children, built a home full of warmth and love. She never forgot where she had come from, the girl in the tattered dress who had nothing. It made her appreciate everything they had built together even more. Her Uncle Gerald died when Victoria was 30, drunk and alone in his farmhouse. Victoria attended the funeral, standing beside Isaac as they lowered the coffin into the ground. She felt sad for the wasted life, for the bitterness that had consumed him. But mostly, she felt grateful that her life had taken a different path. "He never knew what he had," Isaac said quietly as they walked away from the grave. "He had you under his roof, and he treated you like you were worthless. His loss was my gain." The children grew healthy and strong. Samuel became serious and studious, fascinated by books and learning. James was adventurous and bold, always exploring. Lily was artistic, drawing and painting anything she could get her hands on. Rose and Ruth were inseparable, mirror images of each other, full of mischief and laughter. Isaac taught his sons to work hard, to treat women with respect, to value character over wealth. He taught his daughters that they were just as capable as any boy, that they should dream big, and never let anyone tell them they were less than. "Your mother," he told them often, "is the strongest, bravest woman I know. She came here with nothing, faced more hardship than most people ever see, and she never gave up. She built a life through sheer determination and grace. You all should aspire to be like her." Victoria would blush when he said such things, but she was proud too. Proud of what she had overcome, proud of the life she had built, proud of the family she and Isaac had created together. On their 20th anniversary, the children, now older, organized a surprise party. The whole community came out, filling the expanded house and spilling into the yard. There was music and dancing, food and laughter. Victoria, wearing a beautiful dress that Isaac had bought her, felt overwhelmed by the love surrounding her. 20 years, Isaac said as they danced together under the stars. "It seems like yesterday and a lifetime ago all at once." "You have any regrets?" Victoria asked. "Not a single one," Isaac said without hesitation. "Every choice I made that led me to you was the right one." "You are the best thing that ever happened to me, Victoria Fitzgerald." "And you are mine," Victoria said, resting her head against his chest as they swayed to the music. As they grew older, they watched their children grow into fine adults. Samuel went to college, became a teacher. James took over much of the ranch work, proving to be a natural leader. Lily married a kind young man from town and started her own family. Rose and Ruth opened a dress shop together, using the sewing skills Victoria had taught them. And through it all, Isaac and Victoria remained each other's greatest love, greatest support, greatest joy. They grew old together, their hair turning gray, their bodies slowing down, but their love never diminishing. On a warm summer evening when they were both in their 70s, they sat together on the porch of their house, watching the sunset. They were grandparents many times over now, their lives rich with family and memories. "You remember," Victoria said, "the day we met. When that drunk miner knocked into me, and I was scrambling in the dirt for those coins." "Of course I remember," Isaac said, taking her hand. "It was the most important day of my life. You looked at me like I was someone special," Victoria said. "Even though I was wearing a tattered dress and had nothing to my name, you treated me like I mattered." "Because you did matter," Isaac said. "You were the most beautiful thing I had ever seen, not because of what you were wearing or what you owned, but because of who you were inside." "That has never changed, Victoria. You are still the most beautiful thing I have ever seen." Victoria squeezed his hand, tears in her eyes. "I was so lost before I met you. I thought my life was over, that I would never be happy again. But you showed me that I was wrong. You gave me a life full of love and joy. You gave me everything." "We gave each other everything," Isaac said. "That is what love is, Victoria. Not one person saving another, but two people building a life together, supporting each other, lifting each other up." They sat in comfortable silence, watching the colors paint the sky. Their children and grandchildren would be coming for dinner soon. The house would fill with noise and laughter, and they would be surrounded by the family they had created. But for now, it was just the two of them, the cowboy and the farmer's niece, who had found each other against all odds and built a love story for the ages. "I would do it all again," Victoria said softly. "Every hardship, every struggle, every moment of fear and doubt." I would do it all again because it led me to you. And I would spend every day of my life showing you how precious you are, Isaac said. How you are worth more than all the gold in California, more than anything this world has to offer. You were royalty to me from the moment I saw you, Victoria. You always will be. As the sun set over the California hills, painting everything in shades of gold and amber, they sat together, two souls who had found their perfect match. The farmer's niece in her tattered dress had found her cowboy, and he had treated her like the queen she always was. Together, they had built a life, a family, a legacy of love that would endure for generations. And as the first stars appeared in the darkening sky, they knew with absolute certainty that they had been blessed. Not with riches or fame or easy lives, but with something far more valuable. True love, the kind that lasts a lifetime, the kind that transforms and heals, the kind that sees past tattered dresses and harsh circumstances to the precious soul beneath. Their story was not one of a prince rescuing a princess. It was better than that. It was the story of two people who chose each other, who saw value in each other when the world said there was none, who built something beautiful from nothing. It was a story of respect and partnership, of kindness and devotion, of a love that never wavered even when times were hard. The children began to arrive, their voices calling out in greeting as they came up the path. Isaac and Victoria rose to welcome them, their hands still clasped together as they had been for over 50 years. They greeted their children and grandchildren with hugs and smiles, ushering everyone inside for dinner. The house filled with the sounds of family, of multiple conversations happening at once, of children laughing and adults catching up. Victoria moved through it all with quiet grace, making sure everyone had enough to eat, that everyone felt welcome and loved. Isaac stayed by her side, helping where he could, his eyes following her with the same love and admiration they had held since the day they met. After dinner, as was tradition at family gatherings, the grandchildren begged for stories. They wanted to hear about the old days, about how things used to be, about the adventures their grandparents had lived. Samuel, the eldest son and now a distinguished teacher with silver in his hair, smiled at his parents. "Why do you not tell them how you met?" he suggested. Victoria and Isaac exchanged glances, and Victoria nodded. They settled into their chairs, surrounded by their family, and Isaac began to speak. It was the spring of 1878 in a rough mining town called Bodie. I was working at a ranch. Your grandmother had just arrived from Kansas City after experiencing a terrible tragedy. He told them about seeing Victoria in the street, about the drunk miner, about gathering coins in the dust. He told them about bringing fabric for a dress, about the courtship, about the proposal by the creek. Victoria picked up the story, telling them about the wedding, about the small cabin that became their first home, about the early days of their marriage. She told them about the men who had come looking for her, about how the ranch community had protected her, about how Isaac had ensured justice was served. But the most important part, Victoria said, looking around at all the faces watching her, is that your grandfather taught me something vital. He taught me that true worth has nothing to do with money or status or what you wear. He looked at me when I had nothing, when I was wearing a tattered dress and working as an unpaid servant for my uncle, and he treated me like I was royalty. He saw value in me when I could not see it in myself. Because it was there all along, Isaac added. Your grandmother is the strongest, kindest, most beautiful person I have ever known. She survived things that would have broken most people. She rebuilt her life from nothing. She created this family, this home, this legacy. I did not save her. She saved herself. I just had the good fortune to be there to love her through it. Their youngest grandson, a boy of 8, piped up. But Grandpa, you did save her. You protected her from the bad men, you married her, you took care of her. Isaac shook his head gently. No, son. Love is not about one person saving another. It is about two people choosing to build a life together, supporting each other through good times and bad. Your grandmother did just as much for me as I did for her. She gave me a home, a family, a reason to work hard and be the best man I could be. We saved each other. The children were quiet, absorbing the lesson. Then Rose, one of the twins and now a successful businesswoman, spoke up. You two have always been our example of what love should look like. The way you treat each other, with such respect and kindness, even after all these years. That is what we all aspire to in our own marriages. That is the greatest compliment you could give us, Victoria said, tears shining in her eyes. As the evening wore on and families began to head home, promising to visit again soon, Isaac and Victoria found themselves alone once more. They prepared for bed in the comfortable rhythm of long married couples, each knowing without words what the other needed. As they lay in bed, Victoria spoke into the darkness. Do you think we did right by them, the children? I think we raised 5 kind, hardworking, compassionate people who know how to love well, Isaac said. I think we showed them what a good marriage looks like. I think we did better than right by them. I hope so, Victoria said. I hope they all find what we found. This kind of love, it is rare and precious. It is, Isaac agreed, but it is also a choice. We chose each other, and we chose to keep choosing each other every single day. That is what made it last. They fell asleep holding hands as they had every night for over 50 years. The seasons continued to turn. Spring gave way to summer, summer to fall, fall to winter. Isaac and Victoria moved more slowly now, their bodies showing the wear of long lives well lived. But their love remained constant, a steady flame that never flickered. On a cold December morning, Isaac woke to find Victoria was not beside him. He found her in the kitchen, making coffee as she had done every morning of their married life. You should have woken me, he said, coming up behind her and wrapping his arms around her waist. I would have made the coffee. I like making coffee for you, Victoria said, leaning back against him. It is one of the small ways I show you I love you. You show me you love me every moment of every day, Isaac said, kissing the side of her neck. But I appreciate the coffee. They sat together at the kitchen table, sipping their coffee and watching the snow fall outside. It was a scene they had repeated countless times over the years, but it never got old. The peace of it, the comfort, the simple pleasure of being together. Isaac, Victoria said suddenly, if you could go back and change anything about our life together, would you? Isaac did not hesitate. Not a single thing. Every moment, good and bad, led us to where we are now. Why do you ask? I have just been thinking, Victoria said, about how different my life could have been if I had not run to Bodie, if you had not been in town that day, if you had not stopped to help me. So many things had to align perfectly for us to find each other. I do not believe it was chance, Isaac said. I believe we were meant to find each other. Some people are made for each other, Victoria. We are one of the lucky pairs who actually got to be together. Victoria reached across the table and took his hand. I am so grateful for you, for every day we have had together, for the life we built, for our family, for everything. As am I, Isaac said. You are my greatest blessing, Victoria Fitzgerald. They spent that winter much as they had spent every winter, cozy in their warm house, enjoying visits from their children and grandchildren, reading by the fire, reminiscing about the past and enjoying the present. One evening, as they sat together on the couch, Victoria reading aloud from a book while Isaac listened with his eyes closed, he interrupted her. Victoria. Yes, my love. Do you remember that day by the creek? When I proposed, Victoria smiled. Of course I do. You gave me your grandmother's locket. I still wear it every day. Her hand went to her throat, where the silver locket rested. I told you then that when I looked at you, I saw royalty. I want you to know that has never changed. You are still my queen, Victoria. You always will be. Victoria set down her book and moved closer to him, resting her head on his shoulder. And you are my king, the kindest, most noble man I have ever known. They sat like that for a long time, comfortable in the silence, in the presence of each other. Outside, snow began to fall again, blanketing the world in white. But inside, they were warm together, complete. Time moved on as it always does. More grandchildren were born. The ranch continued to prosper under James' management. Samuel's students often came to visit, bringing their teachers' parents small gifts and thanking them for raising such a good man. Lily's children grew and started families of their own. Rose and Ruth's dress shop became the finest in the county. And through it all, Isaac and Victoria remained the center of it all, the foundation upon which the family was built. Their love story had become legend in Bodie and the surrounding area. People spoke of the cowboy who had treated a poor girl in a tattered dress like royalty, who had married her and loved her for a lifetime. On their 60th wedding anniversary, the whole town turned out to celebrate. There was a party at the church, with more food than anyone could eat and music and dancing. Isaac and Victoria, both now quite elderly but still spry enough to dance, took to the floor for the first waltz. 60 years, Victoria said as they swayed together. Who would have thought, all those years ago, that we would make it this far? I knew, Isaac said confidently. From the moment I saw you, I knew we would spend our lives together. You could not have known, Victoria protested, laughing. I did know, Isaac insisted. Some things you just know in your heart, Victoria. You were mine from that moment and I was yours. The rest was just details. As they danced, their children and grandchildren watched with love and admiration. This was what marriage should look like, they thought. This constancy, this devotion, this deep abiding love that lasted through decades and never diminished. When the party ended and they returned home, Victoria was exhausted but happy. That was wonderful, she said as Isaac helped her out of her dress and into her nightgown, his hands gentle and familiar after 60 years of such intimacy. You are wonderful, Isaac said, kissing her forehead. They climbed into bed and Victoria curled against Isaac's side, her head on his chest as it had been every night of their marriage. Isaac, she said softly. Yes, love, thank you for seeing me, really seeing me. Not the tattered dress, not the desperate circumstances, not the troubles I brought with me. Thank you for seeing my heart and loving what you found there. Isaac stroked her hair gently. Thank you for letting me love you. Thank you for choosing me. Thank you for building this beautiful life with me. You are everything I could have ever wanted, Victoria. Everything and more. They fell asleep like that, wrapped in each other's arms, two souls who had found their perfect match and held on tight for a lifetime. The years continued to pass. Isaac and Victoria grew older, their steps slower, their bodies weaker, but their love as strong as ever. They celebrated their 65th anniversary quietly, just the two of them, sitting on their porch and watching the sunset as they had done countless times before. I think, Victoria said softly, that I have lived the most beautiful life imaginable, not because it was easy or perfect, but because I spent it with you. The feeling is entirely mutual, Isaac said, squeezing her hand. On a warm spring morning in 1943, Isaac Fitzgerald passed away peacefully in his sleep. He was 88 years old. Victoria woke to find him beside her, looking peaceful, a slight smile on his face as though he were having a pleasant dream. She did not scream or cry out. She simply laid her head on his chest one last time, feeling the stillness where his heartbeat used to be, and whispered, "I love you, my darling. Thank you for everything. Wait for me." The funeral was attended by what seemed like the entire county. Isaac had been beloved, respected, admired. Person after person spoke about his kindness, his integrity, his devotion to his family. But it was Victoria's words that everyone remembered. She stood at the front of the church, wearing black, but standing straight and strong, and spoke clearly. "My husband was the finest man I ever knew. He taught me that love is not about grand gestures or expensive gifts. It is about showing up every day. It is about respect and kindness and seeing the best in each other." 65 years ago, when I had nothing and was nothing in the eyes of the world, Isaac looked at me and saw a queen. He treated me like royalty, not because of what I could give him, but because he believed I deserved nothing less. He gave me a life I never dreamed possible. He gave me 5 beautiful children, countless grandchildren and great-grandchildren. He gave me a home, a family, a community. But most importantly, he gave me himself, every day, without reservation or regret. I was the luckiest woman in the world to be loved by Isaac Fitzgerald, and I will love him until I draw my last breath and beyond. Victoria lived for 2 more years after Isaac's death. They were quiet years, spent surrounded by family, telling stories about the past, loving on her grandchildren and great-grandchildren. She never remarried, never even considered it. Isaac had been her one true love, and that was enough for a lifetime. She passed away peacefully in her sleep on a summer evening in 1945, at the age of 86. Her family found her with a smile on her face, the silver locket Isaac had given her clutched in her hand. They buried her beside Isaac, under a large oak tree on the ranch property. The headstone reads simply, "Isaac and Victoria Fitzgerald, 2 souls, 1 love, eternal devotion." At the funeral, Samuel, now an old man himself, spoke about his parents. "My father once told me that when he first saw my mother, she was wearing a tattered dress and scrambling for coins in the dirt. But he did not see poverty or desperation. He saw grace and dignity and strength. He saw a queen, and he spent the rest of his life treating her like one." That is the legacy they left us. Not wealth or status, but an example of what true love looks like. They showed us that real value has nothing to do with money or possessions. They showed us that how you treat people, especially the person you love, is what defines you. They built a life on respect and kindness and unwavering devotion. That is what they gave us, and that is what we must pass on to our children. The family gathered around the graves, 3 generations of Fitzgeralds, all of them there because a cowboy had once stopped to help a desperate young woman in a tattered dress. Because he had looked past the surface and seen something precious. Because he had chosen love over convenience, kindness over judgment, partnership over power. As the sun set over the California hills, painting everything in gold, the family said their final goodbyes. But the love story of Isaac and Victoria Fitzgerald did not end there. It lived on in their children, in their grandchildren, in every person they had touched with their example. It lived on in the values they had instilled, the lessons they had taught, the love they had modeled. Because some love stories are too powerful to be contained in a single lifetime. Some love stories echo through generations, inspiring and guiding, showing what is possible when 2 people truly commit to loving each other well. The farmer's niece in her tattered dress had found her cowboy. And he had treated her like a queen, not for a day or a year, but for every day of their long lives together. Together, they had built something that would last forever, a legacy of love that would never fade, and in the end, that was all that really mattered.